every single month on this YouTube channel, we do a $100 gift card giveaway to Speedcubing.com. Now, how do you enter? Well, it's easy. All you have to do is subscribe to this YouTube channel, and just like that, you're entered. At the end of the month, I will choose a random subscriber to win the $100, so good luck to all of you guys. However, if you don't want to wait until the end of the month and you want to buy some cubes right now, then just use my discount code ENCODED for 5% off every Speaker Shop order. Alright, let's get right into the video now, shall we? Alright, let's get ENCODED, and first things first, you might be wondering where I've been for the past month. Well, let me show you guys. So as most of you guys know, I am currently a high school senior, and about a month ago, all of my college acceptances came out, and so essentially for the past month, I've just been touring campuses, researching programs, talking to current college students to try to figure out where I'm going to go. And so after weeks and weeks of going back and forth, thinking about it a little bit more, making my decision, and then reconsidering that decision, I have finally decided to go to, well, you guys can already see like the sweater, but yeah, UC Berkeley, also known as the #1 public school in the nation with a 16% acceptance rate, and the program that I got into, the Global Management program, having a 1.1% acceptance rate. And so yeah, things went pretty well, a lot better than I thought they would be. Now, I have always wanted to be one of those college advice YouTubers. You know, going into college apps, I was always watching these type of videos, and you've probably seen them before, you know, stats and extracurriculars that got me into so-and-so college, and so now it's like finally my chance to be that YouTuber, and so here we are. However, because I am a cubing channel, I wanted to approach this a little bit differently and talk about how cubing got me into college, because cubing was just a huge part of my application that I talked about a lot, and so, you know, maybe I could talk about how I implemented cubing into my application so that maybe you guys could do it in the future. However, I still want to go over everything else in my application for my stats, extracurriculars, and essays, and so first off, let's talk about my stats. So my GPA was a 3.85 unweighted and a 4.2 weighted, which in my school at least was around the top 25%. You know, it wasn't bad, but definitely wasn't the best. I took relatively hard classes. You know, I took 9 AP courses throughout high school, and I got around 6 Bs in total. And so, you know, although my grades were fairly decent, I did slip up here and there, but you know, we all make mistakes, I guess. As for my SAT, I got a 1440, so you know, not super amazing, but also not bad at all. What I did to prepare for the SAT, I just took a 2-week course basically. I did a lot of practice tests the week before, and so, you know, I was able to be pretty prepared going into the actual test. But now, enough about stats, you know, that kind of stuff is pretty boring. Let's talk about my extracurriculars. So for those of you that don't know, extracurriculars are basically what you do outside of high school. You know, obviously you're taking courses at high school, you're trying to get good grades, but you know, what are you doing outside of school? You know, are you doing volunteer work? Are you in clubs? That kind of stuff. And most people would agree with me when I say that your extracurriculars, for the most part, are the most important part of your application. And so you gotta make sure you're doing a lot of stuff outside of school that's really impressive. And so now let's run over what I did outside of school. And so I put a total of 10 extracurriculars, and so I'm just gonna run them down. So the first one, that was the most important one, was YouTube. So yes, your extracurriculars do not have to be a club or something involved with school. It's really just whatever you do in your free time that you're proud of. And so YouTube was what I was most proud of, and so I put that at the very top. And then number 2, I put Speedcubing. Once again, these don't have to be like actually academically involved, you know, they have to just be something that you're passionate about, and that's something that you think you're good at. And so I just put Speedcubing as my number 2. Number 3, I put Swim. Number 4, Key Club. Number 5, I put my merch brand, you know, Encoded Apparel. Number 6, I talked about my custom cube brand called Encoded Speedcubes. Number 7, I put Robotics. Number 8, Team Speedcube Shop. Once again, you know, just kind of whatever I did, not really something that has to be clubs or like sports or whatever. Number 9, I talked about this environmental awareness club called Eco Eats, where I was the marketing manager. And then number 10, I talked about Modulus, which was an educational startup where I was the main media manager. And so those are my main extracurriculars in a nutshell, and in my opinion, it was the strongest part of my application by far. You know, I think it was really the reason why I was able to get into some of these schools. Now, as for my personal tips when it comes to extracurriculars, I would say really just try to do something that you're really passionate about early on, because you always get people falling into one of 2 mistakes. They're doing something that they're either not passionate about and they're just doing it for college, or they're doing something way too late into high school, and so they only done it for a few months until they actually had to submit their college applications. And so if you're still like pretty early on in high school, or even in middle school, I would say try to find something unique that you're really passionate about and get started with it early on, because that's what's going to look good. Now, I know that almost all of you guys are cubers, and so how could you put cubing on your application in a way that sounds good? Well, first things first, you have to do something more with cubing. You know, just playing with Rubik's cubes and just being like fairly fast isn't really going to get you much unless you're one of the best in the world. Instead, what looks a lot better is taking cubing and trying to do something more with it. And so maybe running a competition, starting a YouTube channel maybe, buying cubes and selling them, or even creating your own store. That's how I personally would recommend someone to use cubing to get into college. You know, colleges won't be impressed by just the cubing, they're going to be impressed by what you've been able to do with that hobby. Now, another big part of your application are the awards that you've won throughout high school, and so I'm just going to run down a couple of mine. And so number 1, I put YouTube Silver Play Button. I mean, that play button means like so much to me, and so super rewarding to put that on my college application, and and I guess they liked it. Another thing I put was like some of my swim awards. You know, I was able to place pretty highly in my state in swimming, and then other than that, it was like Rubik's Cube competitions along with some academic awards. But yeah, you know, if you're able to actually like place at a competition for cubing, then put that on the application because it can't really hurt, and you know, might as well. Now let's talk about my essays. And so essays are also super important to your application, and it really just shows who you are as a person. Like if I were trying to sum up the components of a college application as like a metaphor, I would say that if it was a book, the stats are the cover of the book, and then the extracurriculars are like the first couple chapters, but then the essays are like the rest of the book, and you have to make sure that they're really, really great because they want to read more into you and who you are as a person. And so for the UC Berkeley application, you write a total of 4 essays, and I wrote my 4 essays, one about family, the other one about Rubik's Cubes, another one completely about YouTube, and the last one about business and how I've been able to use YouTube to fuel my passion for it. Additionally, because I applied to that goal management program that I talked about earlier, I had to do 1 more essay. And so in total for my UC Berkeley application, I had to write a total of 5 essays. Now, I'm not going to read them all right here because that's going to take way too long, but you know, in general, like my tips when it comes to college essays is 1, put a lot of work into them and put a lot of planning, because the biggest mistake I see people make when it comes to their essays is that they're wasting way too much time at the beginning and it's procrastinating, and so they're writing something that's really not their best work. And obviously you're trying to avoid that. You know, you want to be able to represent yourself in the best way possible, and so giving yourself enough time is crucial. The second part is write about something that you like. When you're writing about something that you're not that passionate about but you think that's going to look good, it's not going to look good. However, if you're writing something that you're actually passionate about, then that's going to look a lot better. For example, my Rubik's Cube essay, my YouTube essay, I feel like those are my best essays in my application, and a lot of other people I know that got into UC Berkeley, they really just wrote about whatever they wanted to. Like one of my friends, he wrote about Mexican food, and my other friend wrote about her hair extensions, and so you can really write about whatever you want. Another tip I have is let other people read your essay, and by other people I mean a lot of people, because although it might be a little bit embarrassing at first letting people read your writing, it's completely necessary, and you would much rather just be a little bit embarrassed than not get into your dream college. And so yeah, have a lot of people around you read over your essays, have people that got into the school that you want to go to look over everything and just edit the heck out of your essays, because your first essay is not going to be good, trust me. And so those are my stats, extracurriculars, and essays that got me into UC Berkeley. Now let's talk a little bit more about how I was able to use cubing to get me into college. And so I already touched about this a little bit before, and you might already noticed this, but a lot of my application was revolved around cubing and YouTube. And these two things were essentially my story going into my college apps. And so if you're currently a junior going to college apps, then be proud of cubing. Obviously, everything else still is important. You know, you should still be doing clubs, still be having good grades, all that other stuff. But you know, cubing might just be that one little part of your application that makes you stand out a little bit. And I know that's definitely what it did for me. You know, for me personally, cubing and YouTube was by far the strongest part of my application. But when I first started back in 6th grade, I never would have even expected that, because I just did something for fun, and it was something that I was able to do in my free time when there was nothing to do. But by sticking with cubing for over 6 years, branching out and making more my hobby, I was able to actually, you know, make that the biggest part of my college application and just the biggest part as me as a person. And so yeah, you know, cubing, I have absolutely no idea where I'll be without it, and I couldn't be more grateful. Anyways, you guys, that's all for this video. That's how cubing got me to college, and I hope you guys took something away from this. You know, maybe you're a junior going to college applications, and so here's just like my tips overall. Or maybe you're still in middle school, maybe you haven't even thought about colleges yet, but this is like your first introduction to it, and so if that's the case, I'm very grateful for that also. Anyways, that's it from me for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.